Recording in progress.
All right, those are the magic words. So we're doing a hybrid meeting this evening. We thank everyone for joining us in person as well as online. And we do know that people do watch our meetings later when they want to. They can just go to monterey.org and watch it at their leisure. Now, before I call the meeting to order, since this is a hybrid, we're going to take just a moment to explain how people can participate if they are watching us online through Zoom. Obviously, everyone in the council chambers with us in person is able to participate in the normal way. So with that, to our awesome city clerk, Clementine, who will explain how folks can participate, please.
Certainly, and just a quick note for those in the chamber, we strongly recommend masks, regardless of vaccination status, except those who are younger than 2 or have a medical condition that prevents wearing a mask. And please keep your phones and devices muted to prevent audio interference. And for Zoom, there are 2 ways to virtually participate. Today, you may join us using the Zoom app on your computer or mobile device, and you can also call into the Zoom meeting. To join the meeting on Zoom on your computer, smartphone, or telephone, use the link or phone number on the agenda at isearchmonterey.org. An up-to-date version of Zoom software must be used. To call in by phone, dial toll-free 833-568-8864, then enter meeting ID 160-772-9333 #. And if you're prompted to enter a participant ID, press #. Detailed instructions on using and updating Zoom are available at monterey.org/public meetings. To make a public comment using the Zoom app, you can virtually raise your hand by pressing the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. If you're dialed in by phone, raise your hand by dialing *9 and then unmute yourself when you're called upon by dialing *6. You must do both. Public commenters will be muted until it is their turn to speak. We'll call on each public speaker in the order of their hands raised. Please stay within the time limit established for today's meeting, and a countdown timer will be shown on the screen. If you're connected live on Zoom, the timer is accurate with no delay. And today's meeting is also streamed live on the city's YouTube account at youtube.com/City of Monterey with about 10 seconds delay, and on Comcast channel 25 with up to 90 seconds delay. And we look forward to receiving public comment.
Okay, so well done. And again, I'll call the meeting to order. Then one more thing, please, Clementine. Introduce our caring city council, please.
Councilmember Albert. Here. Councilmember Hoffa.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Present.
Councilmember Williamson.
Here.
And Mayor Roberson.
I'm here as well. Oh, through the magic of video, it looks like Councilmember Tyler and our city manager Hans Uslar are in the same office. That's good, but they aren't. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Somebody's going to get very rich when they figure out how we can have simultaneous speakers on Zoom. Yeah. Or your cell phone. So there's your next startup, folks. And think of all the musicians and everything that's in a group, because that's going to be, I think, our next accomplishment, because it's kind of interesting when we're doing a hybrid meeting, especially how we kind of fade in and out in order to stay together. So thank you, everybody. Again, a warm welcome to you. And the first item are presentations, which is something that's just an absolute pleasure and a delight for me and the entire city council to have an opportunity to recognize the Defense Language Institute Quarterly Joint Service Awards. City of Monterey is known as the language capital of the world, for a big part because of the Defense Language Institute, and of course, Middlebury Institute, as well as all of our schools, our MPCs, and also our K-12 schools, some of which are teaching languages such as Chinese, Japanese, and so on. The Defense Language Institute is comprised about 3,500 students yearly to serve our country in sensitive national security positions. If you look at the languages taught at the Defense Language Institute over the years, and I actually started teaching on the other side of the Presidio in the late 60s, when the Presidio was open, of course. And the languages, the predominant languages in the past were Vietnamese, Korean, Arabic, Russian. And as you know, I always have to tell one of my stories about Russian. I was talking to one of the Defense Language Institute military personnel who was here volunteering one day, and I asked what language he was speaking, and he said, studying, he said Russian. To which I said, that once was a large department, then it kind of shrunk. He said, it's huge now. I said, oh, really? And why is that? He said, one word, Putin. And isn't it interesting how history repeats itself? So there are 17 languages with several dialects of Arabic, 36-week-long courses in French, Spanish, and Indonesian, 48 weeks of Hebrew, Farsi, Russian, Tagalog, Urdu, languages, Middle Eastern languages, what no one ever heard of, obviously, back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and those are predominant languages. Then 64 weeks of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dialects of Arabic, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Pashto, and so on. There's an 1,800-member teaching staff, and 95% of them are native speakers. Throughout the world, there are about 50,000 trained linguists who are in service. My statistics this last time I got this population is 35% Army, 17% Navy, 10% Marine, and 38% Air Force. A little bit about the Language Institute Foreign Language Center, which obviously is located in the city of Monterey, and we're so pleased. And this award is known as the Joint Enlisted Board Award, and it's a very competitive. Non-commissioned officers, petty officers, and junior enlisted from each branch compete by displaying their knowledge in a variety of things. And when I'll read the proclamations in a moment, I'll share that with you. It's always impressive to me because it's just not going to learn a language, which is amazing enough when you think of someone coming to the Defense Language Institute, total immersion, and leaving fluent in all of those languages that I told you about. What an incredible accomplishment. But we're going to recognize Sergeant Connor O'Day from the United States Marine Corps, Staff Sergeant Alan Michael Sandlin from the U.S. Air Force, Lance Corporal Garrett Ball from the U.S. Marine Corps. And I have proclamations for them, and momentarily I'll ask each gentleman one by one to come and address the council. Before they do that, I'd like to take a moment to read the proclamation, because again, it's always impressive as well. And it just gives you an idea of what is being studied, learned, and mastered at the Defense Language Institute. Whereas the Defense Language Institute Foreign Language Center had established the quarterly joint service non-commissioned officer, petty officer, and junior enlisted board, and the recipients of the board award, Sergeant Connor O'Day, Staff Sergeant Alan Michael Sandlin, Lance Corporal Garrett Ball, have demonstrated extraordinary personal abilities, leadership skills, and knowledge of the history of the Presidio and the DLI, chain of command, world events, customs and courtesies, first aid, code of conduct, uniform code of military justice, military leadership, and the armed forces insignia. And whereas the Monterey community is proud of the country's service members, as well as our outstanding relationship with the Defense Language FLC. So it's always a pleasure for me to present these proclamations as the mayor of Monterey on behalf of the city council and all of our citizens, and to recognize our recipients for a job well done. And thank you for not only your current service, but for continuing contributions to the armed services and to our nation. And also, a sincere thank you to your families. Because without them, you couldn't do it. And also your support staff at the Defense Language Institute, who are there for you. So we very much appreciate you. And what I'd like to do is invite Sergeant Connor O'Day, if he would like to come to the podium to say a few words and share with us. And then in a moment, when he's finished, he can come up and we'd be happy to present this to you. Welcome and thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, gentlemen. Selamat siang. Saya bernama Pak Ode. Terima kasih keluarga saya, terima kasih Korps Marinir, dan terima kasih Kota Monterey. So just wanted to say some thanks to my family, to the Marine Corps Detachment, and to the City of Monterey for continuing to help the Marines here at DLI.
Thank you. And
Yes,
does
sir.
and do we know what he was speaking besides English? And you are
Indonesian language.
Indonesian linguist, and you are an instructor.
Currently an instructor.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Now, did you come to the DLI, then learn Indonesian and as a student, then came back as an instructor?
Yes, sir.
Right. So when you first came, you spoke no Indonesian.
I wasn't even entirely sure it was a language. I got here, but
Yes.
now I know.
Okay. And now you're an instructor.
Yes, sir.
And so what language was that specific?
That was Indonesian.
Indonesian,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Well, I'd like to present this to you. The council members here at the podium would love to acknowledge you. And did you want to take a photo opportunity? Okay, good. Why don't, all right. Take a picture of all right.
Thank you very much.
And you want to turn around and we'll bundle up and
You can take the mask off. We want your mom to be able to see your beautiful face.
we can all do that. One more for our,
What region are we talking about?
So that's the national language of Indonesia.
Okay,
They created it in post-World War II. When they created the nation of Indonesia. They had to make one language.
interesting.
So there's still there's hundreds of different dialects.
Wow.
all throughout the country, but that's the one that the news and what they teach in school.
okay,
Mhm.
okay, good. So you'll be able to read the newspaper.
I will.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, one more.
Oh,
One more photo.
Thank you and congratulations.
thank you, sir.
Where are you from?
From Florida originally and Alabama after that. Much warmer.
Is it a Go Knights or somebody else?
I am an Auburn fan.
Okay, that's all right.
Thank you, man.
If you're going to be a fan, pick a winning school, right?
Well, the Knights are.
No Johnny come lately's here.
All right, then I would love to invite Staff Sergeant Alan Michael Sandlin, please, to the podium. Welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for this opportunity. خیلی خوشحال شدم که این فرصت گرفتم. 그리고 지금은 زبان کره‌ای یاد میگیرم. I would like to say thank you for this opportunity that you've given me. Thank you to my wife and my children who have supported me in all of my endeavors here. And thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, we appreciate you so much. Please come on up and I'd be an honor to give this to you.
Yes.
All right, we will. All right.
Bring the kids up too.
Good. Come on. Takes a family. Then we'll want to be sure, maybe we can get mom in this too for the next photo. There you go.
Thank you. They don't get there in the picture, would you rather have them not in a public picture?
There's our police chief on. Oh. Chief Dave, you
I
go.
think you've got the blackout, whiteout. Compliance. Thank you and congratulations.
Cheat compliance. That's funny. Attaboy, Dave.
He's never concerned about our social media.
And did we know what language he was speaking to us? I guess you'll have to tell us.
Oh, well, that's why I was so confused.
Farsi and Korean. Wow.
Can't you tell by my gray hair? I'm confused enough. That's amazing, really. And then we'd like to invite Lance Corporal Garrett Ball, please, to come to the podium. And welcome, we're glad you're here.
Good afternoon, ma'am, gentlemen. Здравствуйте, господа. Я хочу говорить спасибо вам для приглашения и награды. Добрый вечер. Спасибо. So I just wanted to say thank you for everything that the city of Monterey does for the Defense Language Institute. I want to thank the Marine Detachment at the Presidio for everything they've done for us, for the support of my family and friends. I wouldn't be as successful as I am without them.
Good. Thank you so much. Come on up and one day we took we were doing this and I hung this thing under and we took a picture and I said, not a good look. Right, if you want to turn around, we'll get some photos here.
Thank you.
Oh, we have one more here. What is-
One more for our
One.
assistant city manager. Appreciate it.
Where you from? Lone Star.
And you were speaking to us in. Thank you. Oh, yes. Yes. Once again, we're just so proud of you. Thank you. And consider Monterey your home as you go elsewhere. And if we certainly understand if you have other duties and obligations, if you want to slip out of the council chambers, we certainly understand. But you're always welcome to stay as well. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I want to say to my wife, you have to stay. That message wasn't for you. She's out of here. All right, let's have public comments. Anything not on the agenda? If you want to speak to an agenda item, we invite you to wait. So if there's anyone in the council chambers who wanted to speak to the council on anything not on the agenda, as always, you'll hear back from us if you leave a contact now or some other time for us. Welcome.
Hello, my name's Eloise Shim, and I just wanted to comment. I'm a little bit surprised and dismayed that the Monterey High School has on Sundays, they have a church now that attends the campus since I think it's about July. And I guess nobody else, I don't know if anybody else has wondered about it, but I mentioned it to a friend of mine from the ACLU, and I thought that it was weird because of separation of church and state, and Monterey High School is a public building. So I just wanted to comment about that.
Yeah, good point. And you might want to contact the school district and find out what their policy is. Yeah. Thank you, Eloise. And anyone online who'd like to address the council this evening?
We do have a few. So first, I will call on a telephone caller with the last three digits 902.
Good evening, this is Nina Beatty. I requested the tree cutting in Monterey stop and for you to review what your forester is doing and review what PG&E is proposing before allowing them to continue. The present policies are wrong and they're wanton. Trees are our relatives. In the last 2 weeks, 10 beautiful, healthy trees were killed just in one block around my home. And I wonder how many have been killed citywide. Most of these were decisions by the city forester. This release sequestered carbon, increased CO2, increased temperature and heating, decreased oxygen, decreased moisture, decreased shade, decreased habitat, and increased climate change. 7 oaks and 1 huge pine on a neighbor's property, apparently to increase their views and sellability of property. PG&E killed 1 large, healthy, straight pine by their contractor, who first said it was dead, and then that wasn't flying, and so then it said it was leaning. Another PG&E contractor who was wandering by saw it and wondered why they were doing it, because it wasn't near lines and it wasn't leaning and it was healthy. So I wonder if someone up the hill wanted it removed because it was blocking their view. It damaged my home's view shed before I saw a beautiful tree, and now I get the ugly roof of Macy's. The city forester a few weeks ago had 1 eucalyptus tree killed and is cutting others. This is species racism without a scientific basis, a species that's resilient and beneficial in a stressed environment. There's no notification, no appeal process, just hack and saw. And what's next? Is the city allowing this to create ocean views and increase property values for landowners? These are earth hostile policies and hateful actions towards trees, the most beneficial and benign of species. And climate actions are complete BS if you aren't protecting your trees. Halt PG&E's tree cutting unless it can be proven that these are dead trees are actually threatening power lines. And I ask for an independent review notice to neighbors for any proposed tree cutting. This is urgent because this has been happening in the last 2 weeks, and I just wonder what's happening all over the city of trees being cut down by the city's contractor and by PG&E. This is, now that the nesting season is over, it's going to be increased more and more, and this has to be stopped. We need our trees. So many of them are stressed and dying. We need to keep our trees healthy and exactly where they are. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Susan Rochowicz. I'm sorry, I think I mangled your name.
That's okay. Sue Roysowicz. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
So I just like to publicly state my disappointment in the vote to kill the project for affordable housing on Adams Street. It seems we have a huge need for affordable housing units. We need to balance single family houses with higher density building. And we also need to build within the city limit and not just on the outer limits for, the outer edges for affordable housing. And it seems like the next step was just to negotiate with the developers, and why not move it forward? Because it seems that project could meet some of those needs. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next speaker is a telephone caller with the last 3 digits, 705. Please go ahead.
Good evening, members of the council and mayor. 3 years ago or more, I met with Congressman Panetta on the issue of saving our wild horses and burros from the extinction practices of BLM. At that time, he promised me he would get back to me on what he could accomplish. He never did, nor did any of the other Congress members and senators. This is epidemic in our so-called democracy. There was one Congress member who did try and do something, and that was Sam Farr. It seems all the good ones fall away and the lethargic and the bad ones stay. The wild horses are a national interest, and Congressman Panetta, as a member of the Ag Committee, has a responsibility towards making sure our tax dollars are being spent, not on extinction practices of the wild horses and burros by BLM, but protecting them. Former Congressman Farr did that, and I expect some sort of answer from Congressman Panetta. For the last 2 years, Congressman Panetta's aide has promised me he would speak to the Natural Resources Committee about utilizing the humane transfer of excess animal law created by the BLM so our wild horses and burros can start doing their job in reducing fire hazards in our forest across this nation. Los Padres allows cattle grazing. Why not horses too? 70 people signed a petition to Panetta about this, and all we get is a cat and mouse game while BLM sells our wild horses and burros to people who, if they can no longer care for them, send them to auction where the kill buyers buy them. 80,000 horses went to slaughter last year through these auction sales, including wild horses, when they could have helped reduce fire hazards throughout America, which is what nature originally intended for these animals. BLM and the U.S. Forest Service deceives the American public about overpopulation of horses, and in rounding them up, they cause spike breeding, which is a natural phenomenon in nature when species decline. For example, the Heber herd in Arizona was slated for removal in 2006 by the U.S. Forest Service. Their excuse was that the 300 to 400 count horse would escalate to 4,300 by 21. The International Society for the Protection of Mustangs and Burros sued the U.S. Forest Service to stop the roundup. Today, the Heber herd number are 418. This should be a case study, yet Congress ignores and allows BLM to now sterilize the remainder herds. And that is totally illegal. Sterilizing wild horses is illegal under the Wild Free Roaming Horse and Burro Act because it takes away their natural selection process. And BLM is mandated to manage wild horses and burros with minimal interference. What good is Congress if it can't obey its laws? And what good is a Congress member who ignores its people? Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Lorna. And next we have Esther Malkin.
Good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to echo what the previous caller, Susan, mentioned about the disappointment of the project on Adams Street not being allowed to move forward. It is really particularly important because it is 100% affordable, unlike the measly 20% that we get from developers that are making profit off of people's basic human need of needing a place to live. I was particularly disturbed at Councilmember Ed Smith's reference to that project and others like it, that they would be a corruption of our neighborhoods. And that sets the tone for our next election. Anybody who is thinking that we cannot allow projects like this to be considered, let alone approved. This was just a consideration process that we cannot afford to look into. While parking might be important and it may not have been already addressed in the point of the process that it was in, the fact that he and the others who voted against it, Mayor Clyde and Dan Albert, were not even willing to engage with the developer and allow them to go into the next exploratory step is actually completely unacceptable and hypocritical when you say that you are for affordable housing and wouldn't support the other two council members that did vote for that project to go forward. When you talk about being for affordable housing, you cannot only talk about building for-profit development and projects. We need 100% affordable. This was an opportunity. 3 of you decided to pass on it, and that is going to be on your record, and it is going to be a problem going forward with the city, because while you denied that, you didn't propose any alternative to replace it. We had a limited amount of projects that we had called opportunity projects, and these were 2 out of the 4 or 5 that might have happened. And hopefully the next administration might reconsider allowing this project to be considered at least a little farther down the process. Thank you.
Thanks, Esther. And next we have Marianne Boylan.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. I also want to concur with Susan and Esther. And I didn't exactly understand it was 100% affordable, but this is what I like to say. I understand that. I applaud the fact that you did your housing that's behind with Midpen. That's great. But I also know that you have a quota that you have to have in the next few years of affordable housing. I know that it was in the 600s before, we never met that. And I think it's in the thousands now. And if you don't even look or consider this project, there's not much available land space as there is, and you're not even looking at even possibilities. How are you ever going to meet that quota? And I do understand that the state is going to have some sanctions if you don't. So why not investigate it now? Let's take a look at it. See if it works. See if it doesn't work. Find out the problems. But just don't say, not in my neighborhood. And that's how it's feeling to me as somebody that's invested in and worried about housing in this community. Thank you for your time.
And thank you. And Mr. Mayor, there are no further hands raised right now.
All right, thanks for public comment as always. And we'll go to the consent agenda. Was there anyone in the public who wanted to pull a consent item that we know of? No? Any council members want to pull a consent item or make a comment? I'm seeing
None here.
none here at the chambers. Online, Councilmember Allen saying no. Councilmember Tyler, no questions. All right, let's open it up to the public. Eloise, if you wanted to talk about a consent agenda item, this is your chance. This is what we're going to do now. So was there anyone in the chamber who wanted to talk about any of our consent items? And how about online?
No, not at this time.
All right, well then we'll close that public comment and bring it back to the council for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Sorry, I'm not clicking quickly enough today. Councilmember Hoffa,
Yes.
Councilmember Albert,
Yes.
Councilmember Williamson,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
and Mayor Roberson.
Yes. All right, we'll go to a public appearance item. There's only one public appearance item. Our agenda looks short, but we are going to have a closed session fairly soon. And what we're looking at is a resolution authorizing an employment agreement with the city manager, Hans Uslar. Mr. Uslar will be receiving the same COLA and other adjustments that have been given to the 5 other labor groups that have signed MOUs with the city of Monterey. And basically that's 4% for the next year and the year after, along with adjustments to health and PERS. So if there aren't any questions, we'll go to public. Public comment, please.
Mayor, actually, I did have a question.
Yes, sorry, Councilmember Tyler, you have a question, please.
I can't remember if we looked at this when we were discussing this previously in closed session, but were there comparables that we looked at? I mean, that might be a question for Brett.
Brett, okay, and our Human Resources Director, Brett, who's been with us a few months now. And always welcomed. Then you heard the question.
I did hear the question, and no, I'm not aware that we reached out to comparables.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it for me.
Okay, and do we have any comments, public appearance item on this? Anyone in the chambers? Online?
We do have a few online. So first, let's hear from Marianne Boylan.
Yes, thank you again. I have a few points I'd like to make and then a question, please. And Mr. Williamson, you stole some of my thunder. Sorry. First, I don't know Mr. Uslar at all. And as I understand it, his present salary is somewhere in the vicinity of $243,000. Job requirement of this position is for a college degree and ideally 5 years of experience, if I have it correct. This salary does not include a package of insurance and perks, and likely it's probably more in the neighborhood of somewhere around $300,000 plus. As an educator in administration, I'd like to note it would take me 2.5 years to make that kind of money myself, and minimally 6 years of college. Secondly, this vote is for an 8% pay raise over 2 years. I do understand staff and other city employees are receiving the same. However, I suggest that a 4% yearly of someone making 50,000 a year and received an 8% over 2 years would affect the city budget much less. May I also suggest that you approve his 4% today and revisit the other 4% in the next fiscal year. It might turn out to be the same, but if nothing else, optics would be a whole lot more palatable for people like me. And thank you, Mr. Williamson. My question was also, because in education, I was going to add, we do this, has there been a comparative work study to see if his salary is less than equal to or more than similar demographic and population municipalities? And I guess the answer, my question would have been, and how does he compare if it's yes? But since the answer is no, why not? And shouldn't you be doing this first? And I wait to hear. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And next we have Esther Melkin.
Hello again. I just wanted to point out that I wish I was getting a 4% increase in my salary. It would certainly help me pay the 10% increases of the rents that renters or all of us renters are receiving. And I think it's really important for everybody on the council as well as on staff in the executive positions to empathize with this exact plight. The fact that the law requires the 10% limit does not mean that the city cannot do a lower limit on the maximum rent increases that we can put into effect in our city. I have absolutely no disrespect at all to Hans. I'm fully aware that that is the going rate. But my point is to anybody and everybody that gets anything more than the measly 1 or 2% raise that I get in my salary after being in a corporate job for 20 years, be considered and empathize with the people who are the majority of the residents in your city that are struggling with these increases, that even though they are allowed by the state, which by the way, everything that you guys have done for renters has been because the state has mandated it, like the ADUs and other building things that are related to housing versus renter issues. This is a big problem, and it is not realistic and sustainable for our workforce to be expected to be able to come up with 10% more annually that compounds every year until another 7.5 years when AB 1482 runs out. So again, no disrespect to Hans or any city staff, but this is a perfect example of how that 10% increase annually in rents is unrealistic, especially when all of you on that city council and probably the majority of the executive staff are all homeowners. And if your mortgages were going to go up 10% annually, I guarantee you that your voices would be heard more than the voices of the workers of our city, who are basically looked upon as just profit-making entities for the property management companies that are gouging them. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And we do not have any further hands raised from the public, Mr. Mayor.
All right, then we'll close the public section of that. Let me start off, appreciate the people's input, and I think I could answer that a little bit. I do know our city manager, and we are very fortunate to have Hans Uslar as our city manager. I would point out that he's in charge of a $150 million budget. I think that's pretty accurate, 85 and about 65. Manages 400 employees in a very complex city, even though the population of the city of Monterey is 30,000. On any given day, we're looking at a city of 200,000 people with, as you saw earlier in our presentations, with the Defense Language Institute, the Naval Postgraduate School here, NBC within our boundaries, a fairgrounds, and a sports center, and I could go on and on. Very complex city with a lot of demands. And again, we are so fortunate to have someone of such good ethics empathetic, and that was brought up. Yes, he is as empathetic as well. So just to answer some of the points that were brought up, very well done. I'm a retired teacher. I get it. And what a teacher's salary looks like. And, and so with that, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
More discussion, please?
Yes,
Councilmember Ed?
Mayor, if I may, yeah, I carefully look at all contracts, and to back this up for the public's awareness as we're proceeding with this final step, this just did not happen because of the agenda. It's actually been in conversation with Mr. Uslar for quite a bit of time. His last contract expired. And so the process has been collaborative, and we have an exceptional city manager who has performed exceedingly well. And when we look at how you compensate, you do have to look at the comparables for like jobs in the market. That is something that I have done. I have looked at the salaries of other city managers, and I'm very familiar with other city managers' salaries that are slightly outside of this region that have the same sort of size in budget and personnel. So he's being rewarded tonight for a cost of living increase over a 2-year period of 4+4, which is well within the range of what increases are being given across the board when you look at some of the other cities. There are some limitations in this contract that are befitting of the position. One of them is that he is our employee and is not entitled to do any other employment. He is committing to this city for an additional 5 years. So this contract carries us to 2027. I think it's fair to say that whenever you have a 5-year contract for a longstanding employee, that's a endorsement of someone who gets along very well with staff and this council. He's demonstrated this time and time again with working under tremendous pressure. And if we just look at the last 2 years under the period of COVID, the emergencies, financial, economic to this region, layoffs that we had to go through, managing through this last crisis and many others, he's demonstrated his worth. And frankly, I know a lot of other city managers, have worked for other city managers in other cities, and he sets a gold standard, and I don't want to lose him. And I don't think he's looking to leave, but a 1-year contract at this point in tenure of a city manager with this education, experience, training, and long-term performance, if we were looking at a 1-year contract or even a 2-year contract, that would be an insult. I'm fully committed for this to be a contract through 2027. I think the salary increase is very fair and marginal. I actually wished all the salary increases across the board to all city employees could be more given our cost of living. I think this is an appropriate contract, and I've carefully compared his duties, responsibilities with the commensurate service and compensation. So I'm very comfortable with this and proud to say that he's ours. He's not going anywhere, and he has continued to perform at a high level, and he's well thought of and well loved. So I appreciate everything he does.
Thank you, Councilmember Ed. Other council comments? Councilmember Allen, please.
Yeah, first of all, let me just take my hand down. I understand the concern of the public about, public manager salaries. It's understandable. And it being in a different sector, education, which is not as well funded, it's different. It's the salaries are not as high. But if you look at cities and you look at municipal salaries, this is very much in line. And it's important that the city of Monterey be competitive, that we keep good people. And, be very clear, Mr. Uslar is an outstanding city manager, and we're very fortunate to have him. I have worked with a lot of different executives in the public sector, at the city, in the school district, at the college, over my 30-year professional career. And the person in that leadership position is really important, really important. And if you don't have the right person, and if you try to shortchange people and you don't treat them well, and you have a hard time then getting good people, the whole organization suffers. So I would not want to lose Mr. Uslar. I think he has done a very good job. And I think especially, as Councilman Ed pointed out, you look at the last few years of this COVID crisis, it was a huge challenge. I thought Mr. Uslar did an outstanding job in leading the city's response to COVID, which was far superior to any other city in the region. And he earns a lot of the credit for that. He took a leadership role in identifying the need to give renters assistance, and the city of Monterey was a leader long before the state or the county in that. We were a leader with Hans supporting and suggesting and coordinating in terms of the rental freeze during the crisis, in terms of helping out our local businesses, in terms of masking and other safety precautions at a time when it was really difficult to do a lot of those things. He guided us through a budget crisis, which other cities, none of them in our area had anything like our budget crisis because of our reliance upon hospitality. And even coming out of it, we're not in the same position. And yet we see other cities, because of they got more federal funding than we got, they weren't hit as hard, they're giving bigger salaries than this. So I understand the concern from the public, but I am very interested in retaining Mr. Uslar's services. I think he's done a great job, and I don't think giving him the same raise as we've given to the other employee groups is at all out of line. It's completely appropriate. I would also finally mention too, during the crisis, he voluntarily took a salary reduction. I can't remember, I think it was 10%. Maybe one of my colleagues can correct me if I'm wrong, but he showed leadership on that as well during the COVID crisis. So,
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Any other council comments? Councilmember Dan, please.
Just like Councilmember Hoffa, I've been involved with the educational field when it comes to executives, and especially superintendents. In my 30 years at MPUSD, I had 16 superintendents. And the reason that happens is a lot of times superintendents make very difficult decisions. And when they make those difficult decisions, it doesn't go over well with everyone. And Hans has made some very difficult decisions over the last 2 years. And he still is seen as a real true leader to lead us through the COVID problems. So for me, it's consistency more than anything. And when you have a consistent leader who does a great job like Hans does, you want to keep him, because if you don't, you may be going through that sliding door of multiple city managers, and we don't want that at all. So we want to keep a very effective administrator like Hans, and I support his contract.
Thank you, Councilmember Dan.
Mayor, if I may. Yeah, so I think the element about comparables is important. I think having that data that we can look at is helpful. I don't think we had the opportunity to look at that during closed session, but I bring that up in the context of not saying that Hans's performance is it hasn't been stellar, and I feel compelled to support the motion, especially given what Alan has highlighted. I think the city's response has been above and beyond during the pandemic, and considering what the executives did with giving up some of their salary during the pandemic, was admirable and showed leadership. So I appreciated hearing your comments, Alan, and I feel compelled to support. But I have shared in the past that, and we've received a lot of feedback from the public around the concern of the high executive pay in the city. And I just think we need to do a better job of being a little bit more transparent. So I'm not sure if maybe we can make part of the process in the future to share those comparables publicly. So that way, when these agenda items get in front of the public, they can have a chance to look at those too and offer appropriate feedback given that, instead of a council member here or there saying, hey, I've looked at the comparables and I think I know what works. How can we expect the public to just trust that what our own side research is reliable when we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars in this scenario? So this isn't the first time we've heard concern about executive pay. And I want to make sure that we're setting the right tone at the top so that it translates appropriately to the employees throughout our organization, including at the lowest levels where I think there's been most concern. So again, I'll support the motion tonight. I agree that Hans's performance has been stellar, particularly through the pandemic. I urge us to be a little bit more transparent with the process and think about how we can approach this in a better way in the future.
All right, thank you. I appreciate all the council members.
Is the mayor talking? Because I can't hear any audio.
I don't know why it says it's on. Okay, I have
Okay.
to closer. Okay, Clementine, roll call, please.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Hafed,
Yes.
Councilmember Albert,
Yes,
Councilmember Williamson,
Yes.
and Mayor Roberson.
Yes, and thank you, Tyler, for mentioning I need to lean into the mic a little bit better. I appreciate that. All right, council comments, and anyone like to start? Councilmember Dan?
thank you very much.
Mhm.
I just got back from a conference for representing Monterey Salinas Transit. It was the American Public Transportation Association conference in Salt Lake. It was a 3-day conference, but I prefer not to report out. I'll do that at MST, but I just want to let you know that I was there representing the city of Monterey. And then the second, I attended the Monterey Peninsula Chamber of Commerce representing the city of Monterey. We received an award last year, so the city gives a award for the next year. And I'm very proud to say that we gave an award out to the Old Town Business Association as the top business association, according to Monterey Peninsula Chamber of Commerce. And it was great to see Rick Johnson come up and give the award one last time. And so I think he's retired as of yesterday, I believe. So
Wow.
congratulations again, Rick. That's
Yeah.
it.
Thanks for reporting on outside activities. Council member Ed, council comments, outside activities?
Yeah, so this is one of those periods of July where most of the boards that I serve on have not met. However, yesterday afternoon, we did meet for the first time in a while with the Transportation Authority Monterey County Rail Subcommittee, receiving a report on the project for the renewed rail station. So that is just nearly done. Some property acquisition that's taken us about 4 years as a long process with some negotiations. However, the construction is basically done in the parking lot, and our project from TAMS's side has been, bless you, our TAMS's side has turning it over as a property control to the city of Salinas. So it's exciting. There'll be more news in the near future about the trail station in Salinas. So I just say the Transportation Authority group is represented by every single city and county representatives, of course. It's a very large board. We work well together. We're able to identify worthy transportation projects that improve and decrease congestion and improve. Yesterday, we received a presentation by a member of the Monterey Salinas Transit staff on the bus rapid lane, and that's progressing well. And I would refer folks to the MSC website for additional information there. So that's been it on the outside. I also serve on the Old Monterey Business Association. Rick Johnson, we had comments for him and we recognized him last council meeting. He will be missed, but the organization is under good leadership with Peter, the new executive director, and a very strong board. So look forward to getting back to some of the meetings. The other board meeting the other board that I represent this council on is AMBAG, as well as the Monterey County Convention Visitors Bureau. So it's been nice to have a little bit of a break, but we're back in full service with all those boards in August. So thank you for the patience, and there's a lot of things going on, and the summer's here, but all the boards are still working. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Tyler, reports on outside activities for us, please.
Yeah, Mayor, if I may, I would ask us to close with a moment of silence for one of our neighbors here in Old Town, Kathleen Waite. She was, I believe in 2020, we appointed her to the Disabled Access Appeals Board and the Building and Housing Appeals Board as an alternate. And just to share a little bit about her with everybody, she was appointed to a Yolo Superior Court bench in 2003. And then she has a lot here that I could share, but to try to keep this a little bit brief, I want to read one of the paragraphs in regards to some of her work in Monterey. She was dedicated member of the board of directors for the Monterey County Salvation Army, who described her as unselfish and noted that during her term of service, her generosity and passion were boundless. She brought with her a lifetime of experience solving problems. She had a quiet demeanor, but when she spoke, the board listened. She also generously supported numerous other local charities and individuals in need, but kept her donations confidential because she believed charity is about the gift, not the giver. She declined press releases for the same reason. She was just a wonderful human being that I've had the pleasure to get to know over the last few years. And it's definitely a bittersweet moment for me because I'm happy to have known her and the life that she lived and how she will live on with many of us. But sad that she's no longer with us. So I do respectfully ask that we end this tonight with a moment of silence in her remembrance.
Yes, thank you for that. Councilmember Allen? Council comment?
No report.
All right, thank you. Briefly, I had an opportunity to attend a retirement reception for Ingo Waite, who has retired as the library director after a 20-year career in our library. And it was well attended by many people in the community, her board, foundation, friends of the library, as well as patrons and so on. Expressed a lot of appreciation for a wonderful work that she did. So it was a celebration, and at the same time, we have someone who's leaving, but on the other hand, we do, the library board has hired a new library director, and I expect there'll be receptions and opportunities to meet him. Secondly, as we honor Catherine Waite in a moment when we adjourn, I also would mention that Dick Garrett recently passed in the ripe age of 94. He was the planning director when I was first elected to the city council in 1981. And it was about 1984, 85 that Dick retired, and Bill Wachowski joined us at that time. And Dick Garrett, along with John Dunn, who was the city manager at the time, were some of the initiators to our window to the bay, looking at the 1939 general plan. So we'll want to remember Dick Garrett as well. So city manager reports, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you all for your kind words. I wanted to report that we have completed our 2 major parks and recreation programs that are signature events, Camp Kinsabe, out at Toro Park, and also our Whispering Pines camp, very successful, very well attended. Want to thank the council members who made it actually out to Camp Kinsabe to observe and watch what was going on there. But that is another milestone for our city after a hiatus of 2 years to come back and have those two camps organized. Toro Park was especially interesting because we had a wildfire there as well, which changed drastically some of the things that we used to do there because the trails were gone, etc. So we had the wildfire there in 2020, we had COVID, and both events came back in 2022. Thank you for mentioning the retired planning director who passed away, and thank you for trying to close it in his honor as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So in a moment, when Councilmember Ed was talking about meetings starting up again, certainly want to acknowledge the students and MPUSD are arriving tomorrow. So we wish a very successful school year to all of the students, families, and teachers. So with that, we're going to adjourn to closed session in memory of Dick Garrett and in a silent tribute to Catherine Waite as we adjourn our meeting.
We do need to open for public comment.
Oh, sorry. Do we have any
Thank
public
you.
comment on the the closed session item? Here, online?
Yes, there is one.
Okay, thank you for catching that. My apologies.
Sure, this is Nina Beatty, I believe.
Yes, this is Nina Beatty. I did want to comment on the closed session. Ms. Davy and her staff have ignored my disabled rights and blocked my access for a number of years, denying that the city has obligations under state and federal anti-discrimination rules to engage in interactive dialogue with me and to grant reasonable disabled accommodation and to make city activities, services, and facilities accessible to all disabled people, including city council chambers, accessibility, and fair housing consideration in relation to permitting. This includes her approving staff recommendations to allow a cell tower in front of my house in 2018. Fortunately, the Planning Commission rejected staff's recommendation. So I request that you consider all of this as you look at her performance. That's it.
All right, do we have anyone else?
No, that was the only comment that I see online.
Okay, then again, we will adjourn in memory of Dick Garrett and with a silent tribute to and members of Catherine Waite. So we are adjourned to closed session.